That's probably all you would like me to do with an Necturus.
Yeah.
And what animal is this?
Yeah. That'd be great.
Does it have a circulatory system? Yes.
Where's the heart?
Where's the heart? Good question. Okay, so speaking of, the heart, as you know, slippery little guy, has a ventricle, and has a section coming out the front end right here called the bulbous arteriosus. That's actually the ventral aorta. That's not part of the heart technically. That's this thing. And then the actual conus arteriosus is this little narrow section right down at the base of the bulbous arteriosus, right there. I just want to make a point of this just because it's kind of a subtle distinction. You got that on video?
Yep, thank you.
I have to destroy these guys' beautiful Necturus in the process. All right. There's also an atrium, which you can see kind of off to the side of the ventricle here and here. It is partially divided into left and right atria. What's tricky about the heart to understand, and it's been hard for people to find, is coming back from the liver, you have hepatic sinuses. And hepatic sinuses split out on the side here. So this would be a hepatic sinus on one side, coming back from the liver. Okay. And then the hepatic sinuses receive, coming in from the lateral side, the common cardinal vein. And that's really hard to find without destroying it, which most everyone did manage to do a good job of. But basically came into this region here, and it's just kind of torn off on this side here, but it came in basically on right about there, and then running forward from there is the sinus venosus. So the common cardinal comes in about there, and the sinus venosus runs forward. There and forward. You can see that over on this side. Connection right in there, and that's where this common cardinal is coming in. Okay. It's right in there. So I know this is a little unsatisfying.
And that one comes together with the hepatic sinus and then becomes sinus venosus.
Exactly. Did everyone hear that? So hepatic sinus and common cardinal joined together form the sinus venosus, or drain into the sinus venosus. So that's the common cardinal that's coming in right there. Okay, from the side. All right. Pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein drains the lung and drains back to the heart, and you can usually see it. You find the lung, which is easy to do, and you look for something that's running from the lung towards the heart, right there. That is the pulmonary vein. And sometimes they're red, sometimes they're uninjected, sometimes they're blue, so you have to be a little bit careful. Depends on the way the injection went. That was the pulmonary vein from the lung back to the heart. Okay. And they run right along the lung. Okay, so those are the vessels that they had you do right around the heart. Then there's the venous system in general. And something that a lot of people were struggling to find is the ventral abdominal vein, which is most easily seen running along with the bladder on the ventral wall of the abdomen right here. It's often not injected, and often kind of torn up, but you can see it right there. And the ventral abdominal vein, which is running along here, runs along the ventral side of the abdomen, but it also has a branch that dives down and connects to the liver, running through the falciform ligament. And that often gets torn, but you'll find a little fragment of it, often, even when it's been torn, right there at the back end of the liver, coming into the liver. And that goes into the hepatic portal system through the liver. Okay. And back eventually to the heart. Renal portal vein is the vein that runs along the side of the kidney. And in a male like this, you'll find it just down right below the archinephric duct. So if we lift up the archinephric duct and look there, we will see the renal portal vein running along. It's in blue here. Not always injected, but this one it is.
It's the one in the middle?
This guy here.
Oh.
This one right there. It's the renal portal vein. This one here. Okay. And the renal portal vein will run forward. Maybe it's better on this side. Yeah, you can see it more easily. On this side, it runs forward like this, and basically when you get in front of the kidney, it's called the posterior cardinal vein. That's the posterior cardinal vein there. And that's going to then run into the common cardinal and back to the heart. Caudal vena cava is the biggest vessel in the venous system of these guys, and it lies posteriorly right between the two kidneys, right in the midline. So that's the caudal vena cava there. And then it runs ventrally into the liver like that. So you can see it running into the liver. And then it's going to run through the liver and pop out again here at the front end of the liver and run up to the hepatic sinuses into the heart. So that's it right there. Okay. There's also a left hepatic vein, and the caudal vena cava is really running into or through the right hepatic vein on the right side of the liver. But on the left side of the liver, there's another vein running along right there, and that is the left hepatic vein. Okay. In the anterior cardinal vein, nobody found. It's really challenging on these guys, but they do have one. You know that it's there. They have the same general pattern of circulation. It's just really hard to find on these guys because they're so little. For the arterial system, we come off the front of the heart, and we don't really have this well demonstrated here. No offense to these guys. They did a great job. They just didn't quite get there. But if you go forward from the bulbous arteriosus, it keeps stinging. So it stopped. It goes forward from, my wife's phone, it says all night long I was lying here.
Nice meet, John.
Oh, are you trying to notify me of something?
No,
You're
no.
just here?
Yeah, no.
Fascinated by the Necturus circulatory
I
system?
got drawn in. Came to say hi, but I got drawn in.
How's it going? This is Susan. Anyway, okay, so if you follow forward from the bulbous arteriosus, you could trace it out, and it's going to branch into the afferent branchial arteries up to the gills. Blood gets oxygenated, and it's going to come out by way of efferent branchial arteries. And the efferent branchial arteries come out, and there's 3 of them. They're not really well distinguished here, so I'm just going to show you sort of generally where they're coming out here. Okay. And the important thing to notice is that the efferent branchial arteries come out, and they come together to these kind of 2 what are called radices. Each one is a radix of the aorta, and they join together to form a single midline dorsal aorta. Okay, that's there. And radix in Latin means root, like radish. It's a root, and they're the roots of the aorta in the sense that they come together to form that single trunk of the aorta running along. Okay, I'm really going to skip over some of these smaller vessels because I want to make sure we have time for frogs and turtles. And I'm sort of disappointed with this Necturus. It's not cooperating because we didn't have a really good view of the main arteries coming off the dorsal aorta. The dorsal aorta runs along and it has its usual branches going to the gut. And there's one that goes to the spleen and stomach called the gastric. Then there's a celiaco-mesenteric to the intestine and caudal end of the stomach. And then there's a whole series of intestinal arteries going to the remaining part of the intestine. And they're just not well shown on this Necturus, so it just wasn't well injected for that. So we're really not for arteries. I guess I will point out the iliacs, since we can see them down here. You see vessels that are running over towards the hind limbs. Those are the iliac arteries or veins, depending on whether they're blue or red. This would be these guys here. And then likewise, I certainly have pointed these out, running over towards the forelimbs off of the dorsal aorta or the subclavian arteries. So that's these guys here. Okay. Do I have any time left? A few
You
minutes?
got 10 minutes.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Frogs. So in the frog, as I mentioned in general for tetrapods, what we see is a little bit different looking. Okay, here's the frog, and it's got a heart, the ventricle, and there's the atria, ventricle, atria, left and right. And what you'll see coming out of the frog's heart then is this, yeah, there we go, conus arteriosus, which is this swelling here. And then that kind of branches on either side into the truncus arteriosus, which is a common stem that's then going to give rise to those three main arches. So what we see is here the carotid arch coming off, giving rise to internal and external carotid arteries. This is internal and external carotid artery. So this is the carotid arch. And then right behind the carotid arch coming off is the systemic arch. So that would be the fourth aortic arch. Okay. And then behind the systemic arch is the pulmocutaneous arch, which is going to the lungs and the skin in these guys. And that's the sixth aortic arch. See that over here? All right.
So it goes to the skin
And the lungs. So it's, in frogs, it's not just a pulmonary arch because there's a branch that goes to the skin because they're using their skin for as a respiratory organ. So it's called pulmocutaneous.
John, did you show us the external carotid and
I did. I can. So this is the carotid arch.
Mm-hmm.
This is the external carotid. This is the internal carotid.
Oh, okay.
External carotid. Carotid going up towards the brain. External and internal carotid. Guys, this is the external carotid going towards the throat region and the internal going up towards the brain. Do you see that at all? Yeah. External carotid going towards the throat and internal towards the brain. Okay, cool. So you see how there's this truncus arteriosus that gives rise to these three main branches, the third, fourth, and sixth aortic arches. And the last thing I want to show you is if we follow the systemic arches around, like this here, you can see how the systemic arches from the two sides come together here to form a single dorsal aorta. And this is just like we just saw in the salamander, where the radices of the aorta come together to form that dorsal aorta. So here's the two systemic arches, left and right, coming together to form that single midline aorta. Use that. Here and here, two systemic arches coming together. There we go. Here and here, see those guys? Systemic arches coming together to form a single midline dorsal aorta.
Which one's?
This is the left and this is the right systemic arch, and they come together right there to form a dorsal aorta.
Is that this like thin piece right here?
This is the dorsal aorta here. This is the left systemic. This is the right systemic.
Okay.
So, yeah, good, okay. All right, so that's the frog. And then we get to the turtles. And turtles are tricky. I think this one right now is the best for looking at. And remember what I told you, the main thing that's going on with turtles is that the main outflow from the heart is split into 3 branches. And these are the various trunks. The first one that comes off here is the pulmonary trunk. That's going to give rise to the pulmonary arches going to the lungs. So that's this one here. So that would be the 6th aortic arches coming off.
What are you dripping? You're just dripping
Oh,
everywhere.
I'm dripping, aren't I? Nasty turtle. Okay. Thank you. Kind of you. I had put covers on these books, I guess. Okay. Anyway, so that's the pulmonary arch. Okay. This next one that comes off here, I'm using some guts now too. This is very helpful.
Need to hold a second turtle under that turtle.
Okay. Much happier now. The second branch, as we go forward, would be the left systemic arch. So that's this one here, and that's the left 4th aortic arch. It's going around to the left side of the body.
Still dripping. Yeah, don't want to drip.
It's just a drippy guy. It's funny though, because it wasn't really dripping in the last group. What I'm doing differently is just hold some towels under it. How's that? When you eat some your burrito, you know you got it. Okay, those are pretty simple. The last one is the complicated one, and that's the right systemic trunk, which is this whole thing here. Okay, and the right systemic trunk is going to give rise. It's going to give rise to the brachiocephalic artery here, which is branching to give off the subclavian arteries running to the limbs, and also the common carotid artery that's going up to the head. So this is the brachiocephalic artery, giving rise to the subclavian going to the forelimb, and the common carotid running up to the head. We go again. Brachiocephalic, giving rise to subclavian going to the limb, and common carotid going up to the head. For you guys, there we go, brachiocephalic, subclavian, and common carotid. Okay. Now, also then we have over here, or we did, if it hasn't been broken already. Yes, right here on the back side, this is the right systemic arch that also comes off that right systemic trunk along with the brachiocephalic. Okay, so that's this guy here. I'm not carrying it too much.
That is what? That's the right systemic.
Right systemic arch. And so that right systemic trunk gives rise to the right systemic arch going around the body, as well as the brachiocephalic supplying the head and the forelimbs. Okay, and that's that asymmetry. So on the left side, it's just the left systemic arch going off. On the right side, the right systemic arch plus the brachiocephalic going to the forelimbs and the head. Okay, and that's just the way reptiles do it. Kind of strange. And this guy here is nice because you can see a little bit better on it how that right systemic arch comes off and just curves around. Hopefully it's not too good, but you can see that one kind of curving around. And I don't want to pull his guts out and lift everything up like I did in the frog, but if I did, you would see exactly the same thing that we saw in the frog, where the right systemic arch joins with the left systemic arch back there behind the guts to make a single midline dorsal aorta, just like the radices do in the salamander. There's the right systemic arch. Okay, and that's kind of what I tried to draw with my little silly V on the top there, showing how the paradorsal aorta come together to form that single midline dorsal aorta. All right, you good?